This is chapter 6 into the heart of the memoir, and I moved from quiet Monmouth County to an exciting city of New York, which I spent my bachelor years just before I found my wife. All right, after that, my years at Fort Monmouth was having a good time and learning a lot of things. I had enough. I wanted to start my own business and look for a wife because in Jersey, I only went out with shiksas, which is every Jewish man's dream, and those fantasies are really true. But anyway, I got it out of my system. I moved to New York, and before I moved, I went to a doctor's office for something, and I met, and the nurse had I got friendly with the nurse, and I told her I'm moving to New York, and she said her father has to have somebody sublease his big apartment in New York, and he's vice president of RCA, the big, the big corporation, and he's getting divorced, and he has to go to Reno. Remember, this is 1967 or 68, and in those days, there's no quickie divorces. You had to go for a year in Reno and then get a divorce, or 6 months or whatever. So he needed somebody to sign a lease that I'm gonna live in his apartment for 6 months, and he took an apartment in Reno to make believe he's living there, but he was really living with his girlfriend, who was 2 years younger than the nurse, who's the daughter that's fixing me up with the apartment. So I moved into New York on 3rd Avenue, and a two or three big bedroom apartment, and I paid about a fraction of the cost because I was covering his ass. And I had a party every weekend. Then after 6 months, and I met all these women. In fact, let me just quick to tell people that you don't have to go to bars and meet people. I heard these stories, and it turned out to be true. As soon as I moved in, like a month later, a week later, I went to it was election year for little, like state senators, councilmen, not president, just little offices. And all these lawyers that were running for office, the politicians who were basically lawyers, rented storefronts where they give out the literature to vote for them. And the storefronts attract a lot of volunteers who are lawyers trying to kiss the ass of the guy who's running for office so to get a job if he wins. So they pack these rooms and they give out brochures. And the women know that. So the women go to the same room to look for lawyers instead of a bar. And guys like me go to the same room to look for the girls who are looking for lawyers. So I show up right in my neighborhood on 3rd Avenue, and the guy's running for state senator. Never heard of him. And I go in, I tell him I want to volunteer, walk around and give out his brochure. And I had millions of women in the room. So he says, well, he wants me to put him in the apartment houses around that area, Upper East Side, but you can't go alone because the doorman or people get suspicious if you're walking alone. You have to go as a couple. And he introduces me to this very charming young lady, very pretty, who happens to be a brand new lawyer. And they give us the brochures, like 50 of them. And our job, or maybe more, our job is to get through the doorman somehow and then knock on door or slip the brochure under. So we start out, and sure enough, we get past the doorman because he thinks we live there, a couple. Or some of them let us in, and we start knocking on a couple of doors. 2 or 3 opened and said thank you. The others we slipped in, and in 3 cases, the people opened the door and invited us in and gave us drinks. So I was picking up women like that and having free drinks. And what was the shocking reason I'm telling that story in depth, she invited me to her apartment, and I slept overnight with her. I'm there a month, and that happened to me. I knew I made the right move. Then the next move is now to go out and find a wife. So the first thing I did is I got some architects. After I was kicked out of my apartment in 6 months, I got a group of architects that I knew from a job I had at one time, and they designed an apartment that I took. I took an apartment on East 27th Street. It was a store with one room on the ground floor and one room above it, and each room was about 100 square feet. So the whole thing was 200 square feet, really 2 tiny rooms, one on top of the other. And as you walk to get to the stairs, to go upstairs, there's a little kitchen with a little stove and a sink. I mean, it's really tiny. But it's a store with a window in the front, and it's not zoned for living, it's zoned for a store. So I had the architects draw it up, and I did everything they told me. Instead of hiring an interior decorator to do it, I bought the carpet color, they said, red. I bought the furniture white. The walls were white. Then I put a big curtain up in front of where you walk in. So when you walk in and put the curtain up, you don't know it's a store. You don't see the window. And upstairs I had cork walls, and anyway, Good Housekeeping wanted to do a story on it. It was so gorgeous, and everybody wanted to come over. I mean, I had dates up the ass just before the apartment. The only gimmick is it's store. It's only for stores, so there's no garbage collection. So when the women left with the garbage that we just ate with the banana peel, they had to walk to the corner and drop it in a basket, on the public basket on the corner. And I got 3 violations the first year from the Department of Sanitation, $100 each. That's not for garbage. It's not for garbage, it turns out. But that was a great experience. And you're seeing some of the pictures of that store. And then I went out to Long Island, and you'll see the rest of my Long Island experience before I got married in 1970. Well, that was the end of the sad part, of most sad thing in my life. And because of that, I quit the government work. I didn't believe in the Vietnam War. And I came to New York, and I was the new boy in town. And I met millions of women. I couldn't believe there were that many women, because I lived for 10 years in Monmouth County. There were 3, that's it. Now there's 3,000 of them. And I went out to the Hamptons every weekend trying to start a business. And everybody would put me up free for two summers I was out there. And I don't remember some of these women that would invite me over. But this one I remember. How can you forget her? But that was just one of many. And I still see this woman. She has a house in the Hamptons, never married, because I had a broken heart because of me. And these I have no idea what their name is, but I was there over for the whole weekend. And I can go on and on. And I have about 300 feet of this, walking like that with different women. That scene I don't remember. Oh, here I am on the beach with the boats. It's not my sailboat, but everybody offered me rides on anything. I told them I know how to sail, so that was the end of that. But this I did do. I had a pilot's license. I belonged to a flying club, and I used to go out there with the airplane. And even though I had no money, everybody wanted to go on the plane, and I was really hot stuff. Everybody had their Mercedes cars, Mercedes-Benz, and they had the Maseratis, and they were lawyers and doctors. But my having that plane was the greatest asset I ever had in my life. And I can go on with scenes. I would take people up for free rides and then charge them $300 to come down. That didn't work out too well, but I tried it. Here's one of the bad parts that I'm not allowed to show to many people. This really happened to me in 1969, but the government censored it, and this tape, I'm not supposed to show it. It's still secret, but I figured it's a family watching this, it's okay. Anyway, what happened to me there, you won't believe. But the landing, you won't believe either. That was not too good. No, but nothing happened. We walked away. Nobody got hurt. But we had to pay for the damage on the roof, and we had to pay for the hamburgers that we ate, and we used their bathroom. And they took that plane away and fixed it up, and I was flying it 2 years later. But I was flying much more carefully. But this has come to the end of my 2 summers. There I am going off. See, I'm limping, but we were okay. And I think she was in the plane with me. That was the time in late 60s, 1960s, before I got married. I used to pick up women for dates, and I didn't have any money. I was just starting my business. I would go to Leonard's of Great Neck, and that was a typical wedding hall, a big wedding hall. They have 6 weddings every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Every night, every afternoon. And so what they did is that you'd have the reception in one room and the wedding in another, then another reception next door to the wedding in another. I mean, you had to look at the sign and get a schedule, like a map, where the hell so everybody became, like me, a wedding crasher, which they made a movie out of. I used to be a professional wedding crasher, and the girls loved it. We get dressed up. I didn't wear a tux, but I wore a tie and I really dressed nice, and she would dress up. And we would go to the reception. No, the reception meant the hors d'oeuvres before you went in and ate the big meal. When you went to the big meal, there was a name tag, so you really couldn't sneak into the main meal. But the hors d'oeuvre thing before the reception, before the meal, was spectacular. I mean, the food was enough for a meal, and the girls loved it. And I did it for 2 years, dozens of times, and I only got caught once, and the reason was my fault. I found out statistically that since the girl was paying for the wedding, 60% of the people in the average wedding out in these big wedding halls the women had more relatives there than the men. So if someone didn't recognize me, and once in a while that happened, they'd say, well, who are you? I always would say, I'm the cousin of the bride. And of course, that worked almost just about every time. They just walked away, except once. They asked me that question, and I made a mistake. I said, I'm from the bride's side. He said, get the hell out of here, it's a bar mitzvah. And that's the only time I was ever caught. But one thing I took away from that also is my love of chopped liver. All these appetizers had big chopped liver. So I had a big mound of chopped liver at our reception in the big hall that we had with 200 people. And it was really, you could cry over it. It was about 4 foot high, and I had a 3-piece orchestra on top of the chopped liver playing with the violin or the trumpet, and it took them 3 minutes to sink and disappear into the chopped liver, and then the music stopped. It made you cry when I think about it.
Walking barefoot across hot coals, even Oprah has done it. It's a ritual for thousands of followers of famed motivational guru Tony Robbins.
Oh, it's not hot yet, huh? Unless they take that out of it.
You know, it looks crazy. We're going to walk on those coals over there. And all those people are lined up that are in the class. And we're going to concentrate and be hypnotized, walk over the coals that are red hot. I mean, the paper will burn. And only thing that will happen to us is we're going to become crippled for life because we must be a bunch of assholes to do this.
You must have a very fast blood circulation.
No, I think I'm going into the trance. I'm starting to meditate.
You're levitating.
Wait, maybe it's constipate.
Look at your
I'm
head
not sure.
leaving your body.
But I'm going to do it. I'm going to walk on those hot fucking coals.
Don't step in the mud. Don't step in the mud. I love.
Come on, you're a ranger. You must have some pride in that uniform. Get in there and do it.
That son of a bitch got me 3rd-degree burns, and I was in the hospital for 3 months. I sued that bastard, Tony Robbins, for loss of work for 3 months, but his goddamn lawyers proved I had no job when I did this, so I lost the case, that son of a bitch. I showed you the one when I was on 60 Minutes, but after that, I got called from a production company in New York, Goodson and Todman, to do all the quiz shows, and they called me up, and they interviewed me to be an imposter on a show called To Tell the Truth.
Now let's meet our panel. Actor and raconteur, Orson Bean.
And what they do is they look for an imposter that looks like the real person. People don't remember it. And 3 of us line up, and a screen goes up, and you say, my name is Joe Blow. My name is Joe Blow. So one of them is Joe Blow, and the other two are phonies. And he said, we picked you. We got a perfect part for you. I said, well, am I going to be a brain surgeon? And I said, no, a nuclear physicist? No, I said, what do I look like? A dirty book writer. I said, I look like a dirty. He said, you do. I'll take it. I'll take it. I was such a good liar, and I looked so much like a degenerate. They all voted for me. I won every vote from the panel. Bill Cullen, some of these famous people. I was so good that the production company called me up and they put me on What's My Line about 2 months later. So I was on that one also. So I did have a career in television, and you're going to see these 2 tapes of my adventure on Bill Cosby's show and on Donahue's show. Enjoy.
Beautiful.
You're 4 days early. Oh, what y'all got put out for trash in the hotel room?
No.
Hey, man, please don't put the trash up here.
It's not trash. It's my textbook.
That's not textbook.
Yeah.
This is a cover of a book with trash inside.
Just be careful with it, all right?
This is funny. These guys all went to a party that we arranged with 50 bachelors so they could have an opportunity to pick one to date their mother.
Went to Mary Smith dancing.
Oh, you both went there.
Yeah, and we ended up with nobody, zero.
Well, you never know.
We figured our only chance,
step or two, it could be worse.
our only hope is maybe here we'll meet your mother or something.
You never know. If not mine, somebody else's.
Andrew Winston, your mother is Abby. We'll meet her in a moment, as we will all the mothers of these attractive and talented, well-raised young men. Andrew, you're 32. You don't live with your mom, but you certainly love her, and you presumably know your mother was divorced when you were 3. She is a traditional woman, is that so?
Yeah, she is. She's an old school woman.
And she's not ashamed to be, and raised you well, committed her life to your well-being.
She did a great job.
She did, it's clear. The evidence is overwhelming. Attitudes and feelings are what's important, you told us. What is that? What do you mean, Andrew? From the guy's point of view. I mean,
I use my instinct, as I think it's Dennis was saying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Charles. We had an hour to meet 50 men, and you can't get too involved with any one person. I mean, these guys went through a lot of trouble to come down and get dressed up and make an impression, and we didn't want to ignore anybody. Yeah. I believe each of us spoke to every man, which gave us an average of about a minute a person.
Yeah. This is very interesting. You're the second person to make the point that you felt that you should, and now you must know how women feel, huh? In a way, they don't want to break.
It's got to be very intimidating.
Not only that, you know what it's like when the girl says, "No, I don't want to go to the prom with you." Maybe I should speak for myself.
It was kind of nice playing that role for an evening.
Yeah, where you were at least safe, but you did feel an empathy. So the man you found for your mom, you feel is, first of all, she's not going to be angry with you. You're very, very confident that this is going to be a nice. We're going to send them out on a date, incidentally. Here are the women who raised you so well. I am pleased to present your mothers. Abby, all the good men are married. You said that.
But my son was a lot older than 3 when I was divorced. Got a bad memory.
Sorry.
There was a separation I didn't account for.
Okay. You've been divorced for about 12 years. That's
yeah.
Okay. The single life used to be fun. Do I understand your point? Or
yeah,
it used to be, but not anymore? Or what's going here?
Oh, it's not quite as much fun. Yeah, true.
Everybody's paired up, aren't they?
Yes.
And the ones that aren't, and incidentally, there are significant numbers of single women. You probably know this. I mean, truly, the number of single women, not only by virtue of widowhood, yes. Although I don't know what the virtue is in widowhood, but also single women are not going out. Andy's, you'll remember Andy's mom, Abby.
Okay, Mom.
Here's Abby. Yeah, all right.
In observance of all the blind dates you tried to set me up on when I was a bachelor, it is get even time. Actually, I found who I consider to be a very nice man for you. His name is Charlie Schnabolk. I ruined that, but it's close. Charlie is the name. Charlie likes to play golf. Charlie owns his own business. He lives here in New York City. He has his own airplane. Yeah. One of the first questions I ask is with stewardesses, but I don't know. In any case, Mom, I'd like you to meet Charlie.
All right. You remember?
I'd like to know if any of you felt an instant attraction when you saw each other for the first time.
Has there been? You had it. Yes. The answer, yes. We're going to stop the tape, and we're going to look at our watches. They do have a curfew. They have to be back. At our expense, they're going to go out on a date, and when they come back, we're going to find out. Is there a chance or anything? Huh? I think we gotta have one marriage here, don't we? 1 for 6 is not asking too much.
Who among you has made plans to do something later tonight?
Who among you?
Has anybody?
Oh, sure, yeah. We should have known. Let me see. Yeah, you're wired here. Go ahead. Now, sorry, I'm losing my program.
But Abby isn't going to go with me. That's
you are Charlie Schnabolk.
Right. Yeah.
Schnabolk.
Correct.
Well, Mrs. Schnabolk, you know, that's a problem right there. This is challenging. No offense.
There were 4 of them, by the way.
Winston.
Yeah, after you were Mrs. Winston.
Yeah.
And you go from Winston to Schnabolk.
This may be too early to tell, but have you found any negative qualities in any of your respective dates yet? Or is it way too early to tell?
Too soon. Not on one.
Too short a time.
Yeah. How about Charlie Schnabla? I'm sorry, Charlie
It's hard
Schnabolk.
getting blind dates with that name, by the way. So
Hey, I'm taking a lot of liberties, Charlie.
Abby,
Your family is entitled to an apology from me. We're having some fun with Schnabolk. It's like, God bless you. You're sneezing.
Abby,
Charlie, you were going to say.
Abby said I was the second best blind date she ever had, and so I was touched, and I said, who was first? She said, all the others tied for first. I knew I had it.
Yeah,
Also,
everybody's a wise guy. We know she's much more sensitive than...
Hey, for the first time, the family who's watching my memoir is going to realize that beside being on those TV programs, I also do some major commercials. And I got into that career because of my son Eric, who used to take his son, or he still does, takes Noah, into New York having an agent. And they go and they audition for ads for children, like a diaper ad and so forth. And he did it a few times, and I think he got into one commercial. But his agent once sent him a notice that beside children, does he know any senior citizens for an ad for a bank? And he gave me the notice, and I went up to Madison Avenue, and they had only senior citizens they were interviewing or auditioning, and there were about 200 men my age, and we had about a 20-minute talk in front of the camera, and they'll say, when I did it for nothing, and they said they'll call you if they need me, I'll call you back, kind of crap. And sure enough, about a week later, they said they're interested in me for this part, and I came back, and there were only about 20 from the hundreds, and I did a taping again, and I thought I forgot about it, but they gave me a couple $100 and a lunch for that one, so I didn't feel too bad. But then again, about a week later, they're going to pick me, one of the 5 out of the 200, to do this commercial you're going to see now. It's for the TD Bank Ameritrade. The bank owns Ameritrade, a mutual fund. And the interview was very short. I had 5 minutes. And they said they're not sure they're going to use it, but of course they're taping everybody. They'll let me know if they're going to use it. And meanwhile, I got a free lunch out of that one. So I went home and I forgot about it because, it's one shot in the dark. And about a month later, Eric calls me and said, did you look on YouTube? And it seems that when you go on YouTube to look for something, on the right-hand side is an ad. They have commercials, and the TD Bank commercial was there. And there I was. I was interviewed and live on TV, on YouTube, and I was on for 8 seconds. Now, that isn't much of a career, but just to give you an idea how much money they paid me, when I went to college in the early 1950s, I went from 1949 to 53, all colleges charged the private colleges the same amount for tuition. I paid $600 a year the first year, and then $800 the second, $800 the third, $800 the fourth. I paid $3,000 tuition, and the Ivy League charged about the same at that time. I mean, now the same schools charge $50,000 when I paid $600 or $800. So my total was $3,000. And the reason I mention that is a week after I saw this thing on YouTube, I got a check from TD Bank for $3,000. 8 seconds was the equivalent that I had paid for my tuition for 4 years at Stevens. Amazing world we live in. Okay?
I honestly don't feel that you must have money to be happy.
It can't buy happiness, I know that.
I beg to differ. It does.
Not always.
Money buys you happiness. I don't think you can be happy without money.
You need it, but you don't need a lot of it.
People have 100 million, they want 1 billion.
If you have a lot of money as a billionaire, you just be very anxious.
I think there are a lot of miserable people who have a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to 10 Super Bowls and traveled the world and run marathons, but holding my first granddaughter, I mean, I don't think I was ever happier.
The most happiest thing is when I'm with my brother.
Seeing her walking down the aisle when I first got married.
I like to pop my brother in a Cinderella costume.
People should die with no money, and the last check they make out to the undertaker should bounce.
Yeah.